Let Us Be Muslims by Sayyid Abul Mawdudi, edited by the late Mr. Khurram Murad. May Allah bless them both. Chapter 5. Why is a Kalimah unique? Brothers in Islam, let us consider further the meaning and essential implications of the Kalimah, for it is the very foundation of Islam. Believe it, and you enter Islam on its strength. Understand it fully, and move your life in accordance with it, and you become true Muslim. Without it, you can neither enter nor remain in Islam. The parable. Allah calls it Kalimah Tayyibah, a good, pure and wholesome word, and thus defines it. Are you not aware how God sets forth the parable of Kalimah Tayyibah? It is like a good tree, firmly rooted, its branches reaching into heaven. It gives its fruit every moment by the permission of its Lord. So God set forth parables unto men that they may bethink themselves. And the parable of Kalimah Kabita is like a corrupt tree, uprooted from the earth, having no permanence. God grants firmness unto those who have believed in the firm word, in the present life and in the world to come. And the wrongdoers he lets go astray, for God does whatever he wills. Surah Ibrahim, ayat 7 to 24. Kalimah Tayyibah is here likened to a noble tree, whose roots are firmly fixed in the earth and whose branches reach to the sky. And all the while it continues to yield abundant fruit, as commanded by the Lord. Set against it is the Kalimah Kabita, that is an evil or corrupt word, a false belief, and a baseless saying, which may be likened to a self-seeded plant growing in poor, shallow earth and easily plucked out with a single pull because its roots have no firm base. So striking and beautiful is a parable that the more you reflect on it, the more you will come to absorb the lessons that can be learned from it. Two kinds of trees. Consider example of the two kinds of trees. Look at an oak tree, how firmly it is rooted, to what great height it reaches, how extensively its branches spread, what fine foliage it bears. How did this tree acquire such strength and magnificence? From the nature of its fruits, the acorn, its seed has an inherent right to become a great tree, and this right was so self-evident that when it made its claim, the earth, the water, the air, the warm day and the cool night, in fact all the elements concerned acknowledged it, and whatever it demanded from them was given to it. Thus by merit it developed into a great tree by yielding beneficial fruits, and by the nobility of its dimension it continued to demonstrate that it deserved to become a tree of mighty stature, and that the help given it by the combined forces of earth and heavens was totally justified. More, it was a duty of the elements to give such help, because the power that it possessed by the earth, water and air and other elements to nourish, develop and mature trees is precisely meant for the purpose of helping trees of noble species. But what about wild, self-seeded plants? Where are their strength and virtues? Their roots are so shallow, and they can be pulled out by a child. They are so weak, they wither away in the wind. If you touch them, you may well be pricked by thorns. If you taste them, they may well be bitter and harmful. God only knows how many of these sprout every day and wither away. Why are they as they are? The reason is that they do not possess the intrinsic right to grow that the acorn does, and which allows the growth of the mighty oak. When there are no trees of noble species to grow. The earth, which by its nature cannot remain fallow, tolerates the growth of shrubs and weeds. Water does give nourishment, and some energy is supplied by the air, but none of the elements accept the rights of existence of these plants as they do the oak. That is why neither the earth allows their root to spread themselves within itself, nor is water willing wholeheartedly to give nourishment, nor is the air inclined to help them flourish. So, with this poor subsistence, these plants grow unhealthy, tasting bad, often bearing thorns and poisonous fruits. It is conclusively demonstrated that earth and heavens are not created to help the growth of such plants. Keep these two examples before you and then think about the difference between Kalimah Tayyibah and the Kalimah Kabita. Characteristic of the Kalimah Tayyibah. Kalimah Tayyibah is a true word, so true that they cannot possibly be anything truer in the entire world. That the God of the whole universe is Allah alone. Each and everything on earth and in heaven bears witness to this. Human beings, animals, trees, stones, particles of sand, flowing streams, the bright sun. Is there a single thing out of all this which has been created by anybody but Allah, which can survive through anyone's care and sustenance but Allah's, which can be destroyed by anybody but Allah? The whole universe has been created by Allah, and His life and sustenance depend on His mercy. Allah alone is His master and ruler. So when you declare, in this world, Godhood and sovereignty belong to none but the one God, everything on earth and in heaven cries out, you have told the truth. We all bear witness to it. When you bow before Him, everything in the universe bows with Him, because all things are obedient to Him. When you obey His commandments, everything in the universe does likewise. When you walk along His path, you are not alone. In fact, the countless hosts of heavens and earth will be with you. From the sun in the sky to the smallest particle of dust, everything is following the path He has laid down. When you trust Him, you are not putting your trust in some insignificant power, but in that greatest power which is the master of the universe. All the forces of earth and heaven you can now understand will support anyone who has faith in the Kalimah Tayyibah and molds his life in accordance with it. He will grow and prosper throughout his life on earth and on into the world to come. Not for a single moment will failure or defeat touch him. This is exactly what Allah has stated in the ayat quoted in the beginning. His Kalimah is like a tree whose roots are firmly embedded in the earth and whose branches are spread over the heavens, bearing fruit perpetually by the command of Allah. Characteristic of the Kalimah Kabita. In contrast to this, what does Kalimah Kabita mean? Only that either there is no God or that there is someone else in addition to Him exercising divine power. Just think. Can there be a more false and empty proposition? Is there anything in the world which lends credence to it? The atheist says there is no God, but everything on earth and in heaven denounces him as wrong. Together with all of us, you have been created by God, and this very God has given you the tongue with which to utter this falsehood. The idolater says that there are partners in His divine powers. They too provide sustenance. They too have power over things. They too can determine our fates. They too can benefit or harm us. They too can listen to prayers and grant wishes. They too deserve to be feared and trusted. Their right too runs on God's earth, and their commands and laws too should be obeyed alongside those of God. Yet everything on earth and in heaven refutes his claim as an absolute lie and totally against reality. Now consider how a person who believes in such a false proposition and leads a life in conformity with it can ever prosper in this world and in the hereafter. Allah has, in His mercy, allowed them freedom for a certain duration and promised them sustenance. The elements of nature will therefore provide nourishment to them for a while, but they will not concede it as their right. They will be like the subsided shrubs and wheat I've just spoken of. Contrasting results. The same constant is to be found between their fruits. Kalimah tayyibah produces sweet fruits. It establishes peace in the world. Goodness, truth, and justice predominate, and people benefit accordingly. But what branches can you grow from an evil root like the Kalimah, Kabita? The more it grows, the more it shoots out thorny branches. Poison runs in its very arteries. And what fruit can grow on such branches as these? Only such as we continually bitter, only such are as continually bitter and poisonous. See with your own eyes what is happening in the world where kufur, idolatry, or secularism prevails. Man is bent on destruction of his fellow being. Preparation for war are constantly being made. Nuclear weapons and poisonous gases are being manufactured. Nations are set on destroying each other. The powerful subjugate the weak simply to snatch away their bread. The weak are cowed by the armies and police and threats of jails and execution. They can find no escape from the oppressions of the strong. And what of individuals? Their morals are so depraved that even Satan would be ashamed. Human beings are committing acts which even animals would hesitate to do. The rich suck the blood of the poor through exploitation and usury and force the poor to work as if they were slaves born just to serve them. Human dignity and rights are being trampled upon. Abortion is rife because people do not want their physical pleasures to be interrupted. Even wife swapping is practiced. Little wonder that whenever a plant has grown anywhere from this Kalimah, Kabita, it is full of thorns, and whatever fruit it produces is bitter and poisonous. After giving the two parables, Allah says, "Thus God grants firmness unto those who have believed in the firm word in the present life and in the world to come. And the wrongdoers He lets go astray." Ibrahim, Surah Ibrahim, Ayat 27. Thus Allah will grant strength and endurance in this world and in the hereafter to those who have faith in the Kalimah Tayyibah. Consequently, He will set at naught all the endeavors of those wrongdoers who put their faith in the Kalimah Kabita. They will not do anything good which will bear fruits in this world or the next. Why are believers in the Kalimah not flourishing? You have heard, brothers, the difference between the Kalimah Tayyibah and the Kalimah Kabita and their results. You will now surely ask, we believe in the Kalimah Tayyibah, then how is it that we do not flourish, and why are the unbelievers prospering? I should answer this question, and I shall. But rather than just becoming angry at my word, look into your hearts and see if I am speaking the truth. In the first place, your claim that you believe in the Kalimah is not true. Believing in the Kalimah does not consist in its mere utterance. It must be rooted in the heart. It must drive out any belief opposed to it. It should make any actions in contravention of it well nigh impossible. Tell me, brothers, in the name of God, is it true of you? Are not hundreds of idolatrous and polytheistic beliefs prevalent among you? Ideas totally opposed to the Kalimah Tayyibah. Are not the heads of Muslims being bowed before objects other than God? Are not Muslims afraid of forces other than Him? Do they not expect succor from sources besides Him? Do they not take others as the providers? Do they not sometimes put the laws of God aside and follow other laws instead without any qualms? Do they not sometimes openly state in the courts that they do not abide by the Sharia but by custom and usage? Are there not people among us who do not hesitate to violate the laws of God for the sake of trifling material benefit? Are there not those who dread the anger of unbelievers but not the wrath of God? And those who are ready to go to any length to carry the favors of kafirs but are unwilling to do anything to secure God's favor? And those who take the supremacy of kafir to be real but the rule of God as imaginary? Tell me, for the sake of God, if all this is not fact, and if it is, what justification have you for complaining that you are not prospering despite believing in the Kalimah Tayyibah? First, you should become true believers in the Kalimah Tayyibah and model your lives on the pattern it lays down. If even then your life do not become like trees which have firm and deep roots in the earth and which spread their luxuriant branches up to the sky, then I crave Allah's pardon. You may consider your God a liar for having made you false promises. Are followers of the Kalimah Kabita prospering? Again, your contention that believers in the Kalimah Kabita are prospering in this world is not correct. In the true sense, these people have never before prospered, nor are they prospering now. You judge by their excessive wealth, their abundance of luxury goods, and their outward trappings of splendor. Material prosperity is not real prosperity. Let their inner self speak. How many of them have peace of mind? They are laden with luxury, but their hearts are fiery furnaces which keep them anxious and restless. How has disobedience to the law of God turned homes into hell? How rampant is suicide in Europe and America? How widespread is divorce? How through genocide, birth control, and abortion is the human race been diminished? How are drugs and alcohol destroying the lives of many thousands of people? What a terrible struggle for markets and economic prosperity is raging among different nations and classes? How are jealousy, malice, and enmity making men fight each other? How has the mad race for possession made life bitter for so many people? And today's huge and magnificent cities will look like paradise from a distance, contain thousands and thousands of people who are wallowing in misery. Do you call this prosperity? Is this what you are seeking? Is this what you are seeking so enviously? Remember, my brother, that the words of God can never be untrue. There is no Kalimah except the Kalimah Tayyibah, by following which man may achieve glory in this world and happiness in the world next to come. Seek as you will never be able to find any fault with it. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim.